Testing one, two, three. Testing one. Testing one, two, three. This is a heavy topic, and I meant to do this episode earlier, but it's been a rough week. Just you know, bad, terrible news with Charlie Kirk, and then 9/11, and so anyway, it's a lot of people are recovering from that, and it really doesn't matter if you agree with Charlie Kirk or not. I mean, I am a big proponent of protecting life, and so I mean, if we don't see eye to eye, that's fine. That's quite okay. I get it. No one, not everyone's going to agree with me. Heck, man, I don't even agree with my own wife, and I love her, and we've been together for a long time. And so, I mean, I get it. People disagree on various things, so that's irrelevant. So prayers go out to his family and his friends, those who knew him. 31 years old, young guy. But anyway, yeah. So it's been a rough week. But from one rough topic to another is 24 years after 9/11. So I just wanted to do a show on how much the military has changed since then. So I was a pre 9/11 guy, and I remember, like, nothing against the Republic of South Korea, but the fact that, at least for a person of my rank at the time, pre 9/11, the worst place you can go is Korea, because you're unaccompanied, right? And if you're a married person, you couldn't take your spouse and kids. But I know there is exceptions with a 2-year duty assignment and accompanied, and I understand. But for me, that was one thing that I was like, well, hopefully I don't get that assignment. But you fast forward to 9/11, and I remember that morning, the first plane crashed at local 8:46 local time, New York City. I think the North Tower. And I was stationed at Fort Irwin, and so the PT, or accountability formation, was at 6:30. So by the time I got there to the formation, I heard some whispers, but I really didn't know, and it wasn't until and again, look, no smartphones, right? People weren't looking on the internet, and so did have computers when that long ago, but the flow of information was slower. Um, unlike unlike today, it is now. And our first sergeant said, "Hey, this is what happened." He dismissed. I mean, it was a good call on the local leadership. I don't know whose call it was. Um, battalion commander, post commander, whoever, and said, "Hey, if you have family or friends or loved ones in New York, hey, this is your opportunity." And we formed up. He told us, like, "Hey, PT's canceled. Work call at 9." And then I think he called people out that were, if they had family in New York City, and then they went to this little small. We had a couple people that from New York City. But anyway, so that's where I was at. So I was in already, and kudos to those people um, that enlisted knowing that there was a war going on. See, I didn't. When I enlisted, it wasn't really much going on in the mid '90s, early '90s. So that much it makes those Americans that enlisted after 9/11, um, makes them extremely special, because they knew there's a possibility that you're going to go, and some wanted to go, right? But nonetheless, kudos to you all out there if you guys enlisted during that time. So here, and not to underscore the 2,976 Americans that passed away, and so really that's the pain that's still 24 years ago. But lives were shattered. Life was never the same for a lot of individuals, and so those victims' families, the ones left behind, they got to deal with that pain, and so my heart goes out to them, as well as the thousands that were hurt and injured and suffered. The inhalation of the smoke and this and that. I mean, just a truly horrific day in American history, and really angered a lot of us that were in, hey, we're like, hey, let's go at them. And so, not gonna get into the conspiracy theories, um, tinfoil hat on this, on who did it, but this is how the military changed. So the launch of remember this GWAT. I always remember there's GWAT funds. There's GWAT funds. Immediately after 9/11, the U.S. invoked the authorization for use of military force on September 18, 2001, enabling broad military actions against Al Qaeda and associated forces worldwide. This led to OEF and OIF, so Operation Enduring Freedom and Operation Iraqi Freedom. These marked the first major U.S. wars of the 21st century, emphasized preemptive strikes and nation building. I don't know about that nation building. That's, yeah, something we struggle with. And really, sometimes what the U.S. offers, they don't want to buy. Other countries don't want to buy, right? It's sometimes diametrically opposed to the culture of that nation. So that's me just talking. But doctrinal pivot to counterinsurgency and regular warfare. Pre 9/11, doctrine focused on peer state conflicts. Post 9/11, military adopted COIN, these counterinsurgency strategies, blending combat with stabilization, governance, and reconstruction efforts. This was formalized in field manual like FM 3-24 in operations Iraq and Afghanistan. So NATO invocation of Article 5. September 12, 2001, NATO allies declared the first ever activation of its collective defense clause, leading to allied support in Afghanistan and reshaping U.S. alliances for expeditionary operations. And so that's why, if you've been to Afghanistan or Operation Enduring Freedom specifically, you have that NATO ribbon. You get awarded the NATO ribbon, that blue one. Yeah. So organizational structural transformation under Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld. Remember that guy? Old cranky pants. You go with the equipment that you have, not the equipment that you want or need. Yeah, that was not a good thing. He initiated a sweeping overhaul starting in 2001, emphasizing lighter, more deployable forces. This included modular brigade combat teams in the Army's replacing division-centric structures and a global force posture realignment, reducing Cold War era bases in Europe, Asia, while adding forward operating sites for rapid surges. And I remember these BCTs were formed, or the beginning of them forming back then, and where an entire brigade, and this is for the Army, would have every element that you would need, right? You got infantry, you got support, you got air, right? So you got all these, field artillery units. So you got like a mini division in the brigade combat team. So the total force policy evolved. This is integration of reserve National Guard components. Total force policy evolved dramatically with reserves and Guard deploying at unprecedented rates, over 800,000. Yikes. The National Guard shifted from domestic response to overseas combat roles as seen as post 9/11 mobilization for airport security and GWAT missions. Something I didn't know, creation of U.S. AFRICOM in 2007. The unified command addressing emerging threats in Africa, reflecting a broader geographic orientation beyond the Middle East. Interesting. So, technological and tactical advancements. So the drone. Yeah, so I remember these Predators, Reapers. I was living right next to one. Living right next to the airfield in Camp Spiker in Iraq, and those things are, well, first of all, they're way bigger than I thought they were, and just talking just like it was some serious noise into them jokers. But anyway, drone usage surged with MQ-1 Predators and later Reapers, enabling remote strikes. So I'll remember that, just death from above, man. Don't even need a pilot. Well, you do need a pilot, but not a pilot with the actual asset. Enhanced ballistic missile defense. The withdrawal from the 1972 Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty in 2001 enabled deployment of ground-based interceptors in Alaska and California by 2004. Protecting against limited missile threats from rogue states like North Korea. Personnel and diversity changes. All volunteer force expansion and benefits overhaul. Active duty end strength peaked at 1.46 million in 2010. Wow. To support GWAT demands then declined to about 1.34 million by 2017. Pay and benefits rose 46% in real terms since 9/11, including the post 9/11 GI Bill 2008 for education and expanded TRICARE health coverage. Women now comprise 16% of active duty from 9% in 1980, with more in leadership roles. So yeah, it's something that I noticed was the amount of soldiers that we needed during that time frame. We're trying to get ready for deployments. I mean, other than the training, we're just keeping everybody. Like if you didn't meet height and weight, that we're keeping you. You smoked a little weed, uh, we're keeping you. And these were decisions, not me. It was just from higher, right? We needed everybody. I remember, man, it didn't matter. Like, hey, you're here, you got you're trained. Let's go. Focus on veteran support and mental health. Over 2.7 million served in post 9/11 conflicts. That is a lot. And so then that really piggybacks. I should say piggybacks, but that's a good point in that a lot of veterans now have disability rating, right, for the VA, 10, 20, 30, whatever, 100. If you're in the Hundo Club, and that's a lot of the war. We haven't begun to pay off the war. Let's just do it that way. There is still a price associated with that, a cost, a money cost, and also a culture cost. In that we have a lot of veterans, medicating with certain things, and I've touched on other episodes. I've touched on other episodes with that. However, whether it's an addiction, drugs, drinking, bad relationships, um, whatever, right? Illegal drugs, you name it. Budget and resource allocation. Massive defense spending surge. Military budgets increased 50% inflation adjusted in the decade post 9/11, from 306 billion in 2001 to over 700 billion by 2010. That's astronomical, man. That is a lot of money. Um, Funding GWAT supplements, equipment modernization, and personnel costs. Total GWAT costs exceeded 2 trillion by 2021. Through sequestration in 2013 began reversing some gains. So I don't know. I mean, these aren't all the changes, but they're just some of them. A lot of doctrinal changes, personnel changes, um, and just cultural changes, right? I mean, you start seeing some. I mean, I believe we'll probably see more movies in Hollywood about people that served, um, and they're really good, by the way. So, um, but anyway, just tell me what if you were in before 9/11 or after 9/11, or maybe you weren't. You were in the Gulf War, which I missed by a little bit. Um, but yeah, just comment. Just see what changed for you in your perspective. Maybe you were in the Navy, maybe you're in the Air Force, Space Force. No, they weren't around then, but you know what I'm talking about. They're around now, but not around back then. So whatever branch you were in, where were you at when you learned about 9/11, and really keep those surviving family members that got affected by 9/11 in your prayers, um, because that day is real to them, more so than maybe someone that really didn't know anyone that perished on that day. So I'm glad that that hasn't happened again, that magnitude. However, we just got to keep keeping on and making sure that doesn't happen again in this country. That's all I got for y'all. Stay safe out there. Watch one another six. Until next time. Later.